Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good. All right. So today, to better help our audience know who we are, kind of our background, where we come from, we're going to do some interviewing. I want to interview you today.
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling about that? Are you nervous? You excited?
I am kind of curious where it'll go, and I don't know. I'm usually pretty introspective.
Yeah.
And I was thinking on the way here this morning, I'm like, I'm not that introspective today. I hope things go well.
Well, yeah.
So we'll see. I haven't really prepared any answers, so we'll see how.
No worries.
Or I don't even know your questions. So
yeah, no, that's all good.
But that's kind of how we roll. So.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's very tangent-like.
Yeah.
No, actually, as I was thinking about this last night and this morning, thinking this interview, it isn't like for like a job to where it's between you and the company and then their coworkers, as you tell them. This is going on YouTube. Like, this is going out into the world, like on the internet. So anybody with a laptop or a cell phone can learn all this about you. I know that for me, I was like, well, shoot, like how comfortable are people getting with being that open and that personal? And we'll see. But I am excited. Either way, I think it'll be good. I think our audience, that they will like it. And so let's get started. And I guess just off the bat, what are your interests and hobbies?
Oh gosh, about a zillion and one.
Yeah.
I'm an artist, and I paint a lot. I make jewelry, and I like writing. And then I love animals. I've worked in veterinary medicine and had animals of some sort, growing up until throughout my whole life. And I have a strong interest in religion and spirituality, different cultures. I think we can learn a lot from each other, and I think different cultures are just fascinating. I love travel. My husband and I, that's kind of our thing, is we don't really do a lot else. I mean, we don't have a lot of other common interests. He likes to like barbecue and things like that, but the one thing we both just love to do together is travel.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, kind of at the beginning, you're talking about how you are an artist and you like to create, and you talked about jewelry, writing, literature, and then painting, and then travel. I noticed as I have traveled, that's a form of art as well, because you're seeing different cultures in their art, but you're also creating memories with people that you go with, and for you, your husband, and so I think that's awesome. So on that, what was your favorite place to go that you've been to?
It's hard to pick one. We've been to Mexico several times. We liked cruises before COVID and everything. We really enjoyed the city in Mexico, in the Yucatan, called Merida. And it's hundreds of years old that you can go to these. We went into this giant cathedral, and the Spanish built it there, like, I want to say like 300 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really old. The columns are like, I can't even reach my arms around them. They are massive. There's a picture of me standing in front of one of them. But it's a really big cathedral. They still have services there. They have mass every morning, and you can go in and visit anytime, as long as they're not doing the mass. Like, you can go participate, but otherwise you can just go in and walk in throughout the whole cathedral and see the artwork inside the cathedral. Everything's painted and frescoed, and it's really beautiful.
Oh, yeah, that sounds really nice. So, okay, you said it's 300 years old. So,
if I remember correctly, it could be 200, but it is. It's at least a couple hundred years old.
Yeah. Because I was doing the math, and I was like 1700. Like, that is old.
Yeah.
Like, I have never experienced anything that old. Like, well, besides like mountains, but
Yeah.
nothing man-made.
They've been there a long time.
Yeah, nothing man-made. So that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right, and then kind of back to art and creativity. You said that you write, that you paint, that you make jewelry. What's your favorite medium to work with?
It's hard to say. I've painted the most.
Mm-hmm.
I've been drawing since I was really little,
Mm-hmm.
and so I kind of all through school and high school, like elementary school and high school, I did a lot of drawing. Once I got into my art classes in high school, I started painting, and kind of got away from it for several years after high school, but then got back into it in the last several years too. So, but I like to experiment with different
Mm-hmm.
things, and one of the traits about me is that I love to learn and I love making things. So I will explore different things. You know, if I see something, I have all of the equipment and the know-how of, or not all of the know-how, but
Mm-hmm.
I have learned how to do electroforming, like plating, different things. I mean, it could be anything. In copper is usually what I work with. And but I've also done some glass fusing, worked with polymer clay, which is really fun. You can pretty much make anything with polymer clay. I did a lot of jewelry with polymer clay, and then the painting, of course. And so I tend to want to learn everything there is to know about something.
Mm-hmm.
To make like usually just like one or two things, and
Yeah.
then I'm ready to try something else. So it's hard to pick just one.
Mm-hmm.
But painting is what I've done the most of.
Gotcha. Well, awesome. And then on that, what is usually like, what fuels your artwork? Is it things that you've seen, emotions? Is it sounds? Like, what kind of is the driving force behind your creativity?
I think emotion was a really big part of it. I think now it's emotion is there, but it's more of a desire to kind of explain things to people.
Okay.
And so I want to, when I'm the concepts that I come up with, it can either be very expressive, so you know, just emotional, me throwing paint on the canvas, working with different tools like paint, palette knives, or spatulas and things like that. So it gives a very different texture and more. It's not, you know, smooth, glossy, Renaissance type paintings. It's you know, very gritty and things like that. But then I have other concepts where it's almost like an illustration of either I've done dreams that I've had, or just concepts. Well, it's really difficult to describe. It's like an abstract concept, but I'm trying to visually describe it, and so it might be something spiritual in nature, or kind of my perspective of how things work in the world. And so.
Well, that's awesome. That's super cool. It's like I'm trying to like visualize kind of things that you're talking about, and I just in my mind's eye, I can just see some beautiful things. Kind of like, and for me, as you talked about, I was thinking it's like going deeper into the small little things and explaining how these everyday occurrences are big spectacular things. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, some of them, I mean, they're not literal depictions of small everyday things.
Yeah.
But it can be, it's visually things that I try to come up with are, it could be, you know, some atomic, similar in nature. Like visually, it might look like subatomic particles, or or if you pan out really far, the whole universe. You know, so there are similarities in both. You know, subatomic particles looks a lot like our solar systems,
Yeah.
and you go even further back, there's the galaxies and everything. So it's kind of a mix of the science as well as the abstract concept of the parallel, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. I wish I like to draw, I like to do art, I like to do all those things, but it always turns out better in my mind's eye than it does on paper. There's this disconnect, and so the fact that you can do that, and then also just explain it so well, I'm very jealous of that.
Well.
So that's awesome. And then I feel like that really kind of describing your art kind of leads into my next question is, you know, what are some strong personality traits that you have?
Well, like I said, I love to learn.
Yeah.
And I did this personality test,
Mm-hmm.
the Sparketype,
Mm-hmm.
and so my main Sparketype was the Maven, which
Mm-hmm.
their motto is "Live to Learn,"
Yeah.
and then the next one was Maker, which makes perfect sense. So I love to learn things. I love to make things, and a lot of times my drive in making something is fueled by the fact that I want to learn it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like the podcast, because I get a new chance to learn something new almost every week, and or to even share the ideas that I've already researched on my own, just because I'm such a curious person.
Yeah.
So there's that. Like I mentioned before, I'm really well, I would consider myself pretty spiritual. Even though part of that in and of itself is just my desire to learn about the nature of God and us as humans, and how we interact with each other and the world and God and everything. So
yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I remember kind of as you were talking about art that you like to learn all about that thing just to make one or two things, and then you want to find something different. I thought as you were talking about I guess the personality type that you got, that falls right in line. You want to learn everything that you can about this one thing, and then put it into action, put it into motion, use it. And I see myself a lot in that as well. I also love to learn, and so I think that's why you and I connected so fast, and we're able to just share our thoughts and ideas with each other, because we're like, oh, like. Yeah. There's other sides. There's more to learn. There's more to see. That's awesome. That's awesome. What other, like, do you feel, I guess when it comes to like personality traits, like do you feel yourself to be more like compassionate, or more, I don't know if brute is the right word, but like kind of in that spectrum, how do you see yourself?
Definitely not brute. I would say highly empathetic.
Okay.
Or empathic, I guess is the word. I'm always, sometimes unintentionally, seeing how people are, how they feel. I'm very observant of others, and sometimes to a fault. Like for example, I'm trying to have a conversation with my husband in a restaurant or something, and he's talking to me about something, but I'm hearing and listening to the upset couple a couple tables down from us, and I know about their fight and what's going on, and or that they had family member die or something like that, and so my husband thinks that I'm not paying attention to him, but I can't help but hear what's going on, and be like, interested in a sort of compassionate way of like, oh, I hope everything turns out okay for that person. Or I do try, I would consider myself pretty compassionate. I do think that that's one of the traits that we should strive for as spiritual beings. But there is a little competitive edge to me. But again, that's largely fueled by my desire to learn, and I want to get things correct. it's not that like I want to just beat someone just for the sake of winning. It's like I want to make sure things that I've learned are right. And
you want to improve yourself and make sure that you truly know what you claim to know.
Right.
Yeah. No, I get that. There's times that I am my worst critic.
Yeah.
Like I'll do something, people are like, wow, you did that really good. And I was like, well, yeah, but on that step, that was like way down there.
Yeah.
I just know that was bad. And that just set my whole tone for the whole rest of the thing. I just don't like it. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, well, you finished it just fine. No, because my step was off. I was more lean this way, more lean that way. And so I get that. Yeah. Pretty good. But I'm sorry. You were saying something whenever I cut you off. What was it?
Oh, I'm not sure really. Just about the compassion and being competitive. Like I said, I want to make sure, like you said, that what I've learned is correct, and that I've learned whatever it is fully.
Yeah.
And but I think a lot of that is that I like to be helpful. I want to help people out, and I feel like if there's something that I can learn and understand that somebody else either can't or doesn't have the time, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to be as resourceful as I can, and so there's probably some deep-seated childhood things written into that, but I do like I try to help people out, and so I think that's part of wanting to learn and wanting to and part of the compassion and empathy and wanting to be able to do something for someone, but also do it correctly.
Yeah. Okay. So on that, you want to help people and kind of I guess where they lack, you help. All right. So do you see yourself as like a coach, a mentor, a teacher, a guru, a guide? How do you view yourself?
I have looked at so many synonyms for these words because I've studied health coaching. So I have a certificate in holistic health coaching, and and with all of the spirituality components to that, I feel like a lot of people may, especially nowadays, there's so many people that would consider themselves spiritual but not necessarily religious, and so I would really like to help people explore their own spirituality and sort of help them realize that they don't have to subscribe to a particular doctrine in order to connect to God. And so that kind of ties everything all into one bundle. Is I get to continue learning and exploring my own spirituality and learning about the world and God and nature and cultures and everything, and then share that with other people. So I'm also in a teaching capacity or a mentoring capacity, and helping people realize, like, oh yeah, well, they may not necessarily agree with the doctrine that they grew up with, but they can still connect with God in this other way, and that can be very meaningful for somebody.
Yeah, awesome. I like that. So I don't know. I guess I don't want my idea of kind of what you're saying label you. I think you're the only person. Well, no, not even label, but just assess who you truly are. But to me, it sounds like you're just a loving, compassionate friend. Like. And you're always there, and you can be a coach, you can be a mentor, you can be a guy, you can be a guru, but I don't know, just hearing you talk about the couple, a few seats back, and then to you want to help people where I don't just want to say lack, but you want to help people where they need help, and then you want to help them find their own way. And to me, that's what a true loving friend does. And so I think, I don't think it's my place to label you, but no, I think that encompasses all things that whether it's a guide, teacher, all that. It's just a true loving friend. I know that friends have made a big difference in my life, and so saying that someone just a true loving friend isn't, to me anyway, degrading at all. And so
no, I don't take it that way at all.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, labels are very difficult to deal with because we do try to label everything. I mean, even growing up in society, like we learn, this or that, you or me, even me or God, when it's in reality it's all the same. But besides that, but the labels are very tricky because it just like the denominations or certain cultures or races or anything, we try to identify with a label, and then in our group of, how do we show up in the world, and so I guess my point is I have tried, that's why I've looked at so many different synonyms for these different words, is because how I want to present myself professionally or personally. Is it a counselor? Is it a teacher or a guru or whatever? And it's really difficult to just pinpoint just one thing. And I think that's true for a lot of people in a lot of situations. And it's kind of frustrating. It's like we don't need the labels. Just be what you are. And who cares what people call it?
No, I agree. I think a lot of people want to feel included in a group. And when they find that one label, they just feel part of something. As I've grown up, I've realized that a lot of people don't like the idea of being alone, which makes sense. Through evolution, we evolved to find partners and to have partnership and companionship and camaraderie. That's how, I guess. Well, I mean, you don't need to be married to have kids, but that's how societies have progressed.
Right.
You find somebody else, and then you two together create a family, and that's how we have grown. So it makes sense, but yeah, and I think that just gives people, okay, I finally found who I am, and it's this piece, it's this word, it's this label. But no, as you said, people, they become very defensive of that, and to me that's very interesting, because as someone like you that likes to learn, I don't ever like to tie myself to specifically one thing, because now my mind is closed to all other things. And why not keep my mind open and put that in my bag? Like not only can I be a mentor, but I can be a counselor as well. I can be a coach as well, and to where I can continue to learn different traits and habits that can not only progress me but help progress other people.
And ironically, it was my initial search for my own label that led me down this whole rabbit trail of science and spirituality, different cultures, all of this, of trying to identify what I felt rang true with me. And trying to say, well, like, who is my group? Who is my community? What church do I belong to? That sort of thing. What kind of community do I belong to? And where can I find more people like myself? When that whole path of learning was, well, yes, I do feel like this applies to me, and this applies to me, and that doesn't, but that's okay. I still agree with this other stuff, And so it's, and then bringing science and psychology into all of it, it's like, well, it's kind of all saying the same thing anyway. Which we've discussed before, but it is actually trying to find that label for myself that kind of dissolved all the labels in general. So
I love it. That is people truly finding themselves and finding out who they are. I think it's a very powerful thing, because once you find who you are, you can take ownership for who you are, and once you do that, your growth is unlimitless. At least personally, I feel that way.
I do think knowing yourself is very empowering, because then you can know what you stand for, what you don't want to stand for.
Yeah.
And then you know, not to say that you can't later change your mind given new information, but I do think knowing yourself and what you believe, what you value, is very important.
I agree with you. I 100% agree. So kind of back to you've brought up religious and just spiritual. Where do you find yourself in that mix? Like, or is it a mix? Do you find yourself in both?
I don't have a specific religious denomination
Mm-hmm.
that I affiliate with. I do. I like. There's a Unity Church here in
Mm-hmm.
town that I like watching their services and things like that. But I haven't necessarily.
Sorry. Sorry.
That's all right. I haven't.
You're not boring me. Sorry.
Yeah, it's really early.
It is.
But I haven't, you know, gone through the steps of saying like I am a Unity Church member or anything like that. I agree with a lot of what they teach, and so I watch their services, and you know, interact with their community. But I can't remember who it was originally who said we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
And so I do think ultimately that exactly that, like we are spiritual first. The religions are what we created and what we identify with here in this, you know, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional reality. And so those are the labels we've given ourselves. You know, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, whatever, those are human labels. But before that, we're spiritual.
Yeah. Oh. Well, perfect. That answered. Do you find, basically, if I could summarize that, you're spiritual, but you see a need for religion.
Yeah, I can. And I'm not saying that I have found one that I want to say like that's me. That sums it all up. That's what I was looking for originally.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not judging people who do. I think it's really important for people to have that connection and that community. You know, if they are looking for a label, then you know they join a community and they have support.
Mm-hmm.
They have people around them who do, you know, see things the same way they do. I think the only dangerous thing is when people start to close their minds off to other things and not make decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
And because that can lead into radicalism, and anything in excess is it can be it can cause destruction.
Yeah.
And so
I agree. I 100% agree. Something that my dad always tells me is moderation in all things. Because I can just like all or nothing, gun ho on one thing, and my dad's like, whoa, like that's fine, but you have to understand moderation in all things, because as doing it, you can shut yourself off to other possibilities, ideas, things that can bless you and be good for you.
Yeah.
So, all right. So my next question for you is, what are some defining moments in your life that have helped shape you into who you are now?
Yeah. Okay.
Getting a little deeper here.
Yeah.
Feel like we've been scratching the surface on who Morgan is. So let's find out.
So now let's look into the history. I would say I don't think I could define one thing. For some people it is like, you know, this moment in my life, this happened and I've never been the same. But for me, I think it was probably a series of things. Like I moved almost every year growing up.
Oh wow.
And so that I think has definitely shaped who I am now.
Yeah, of course.
And sometimes more than once a year. So I went to 11 different schools before I graduated high school. And so if you count college, I went to 14 different schools.
Talk about a transcript.
So, it gets complicated. But, so I think that on the one hand, that can be a good thing. I have learned a lot about different different kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk to almost anybody. I've learned a lot. It was difficult when I was growing up. I was painfully shy. I mean, it took a long time for me to get a few close friends.
I must say, knowing you now, I would not have guessed that you were once shy.
Yeah, incredibly shy. And so I was always the new kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so, by the end of the year, I've gotten a few close friends, and maybe even just one, that I would be with, frequently. But then it's time to move again.
Yeah.
And before people question, yes, my stepdad was in the military, but not while my parents were married. So the military is not the reason that we moved.
Okay, yeah. My next question was, what was the cause of all this moving?
Honestly, I think it was just pursuit of happiness. I think the grass was always greener somewhere else.
Mm.
And so we moved a lot, just for whatever reason. And
looking for something that they couldn't find because they couldn't find it within themselves.
Probably, yeah.
If that made sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So now, as an adult, I can see that affecting my life and having shaped my personality by the fact that I can talk to a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to a lot of people, but then that also can be kind of a negative thing because I do have this strong drive to learn something new. It's like once I've mastered something, I'm bored of it and I'm ready to move on.
Yeah.
And so that's led to a lot of different jobs. I've moved a lot as an adult as well. Where I am now, the house that I'm in right now with my husband,
mm-hmm.
I think we've been there 5.5 years, which is by far the longest I've lived anywhere. And I've changed jobs several times just living there, but even having just lived in one place for a while is different for me. And so I get this almost like an anxious itch.
So that was my next question.
Yeah.
Has that brought you peace being in one spot for so long, or has it, as you said, make you anxious?
I think it's it has given me a little bit of stability, which I can appreciate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not progressing, I'm not growing, I gotta do something else. We should be moving on by now.
Okay, so that is interesting. Okay, so you're not progressing, you're not growing.
Even though I logically know I am.
Yeah.
Because I've learned a lot in those last 5 years.
Yeah,
too.
well, that's what I was going to bring up. Is it, so are you tying growth and progression to moving? Because, so I guess everyone views growth and progression as you're moving up, moving forward. And
Mm-hmm.
so because you move so much as a kid, you recognize as moving places also part of progress?
Not necessarily anymore. I think.
Okay.
I think probably several years ago or early 20s, I probably did equate to not necessarily moving from city to city, but I guess trying to decide what city, what culture I did want to make myself a part of.
Okay.
And so not geographically necessarily. And I realize, that a lot of my moves are not necessarily vertical. A lot of them are just, similar pay, for example, with my jobs and things. It might be similar pay, but it's something completely different, or
that challenges you in a different way.
right.
Yeah.
And so I might be growing with my skill set,
Mm-hmm.
but not necessarily professionally moving up that ladder. So it's kind of the jack of all trades,
Yeah.
master of none sort of thing. I've done a lot, and I'm usually pretty good at whatever I do. I do feel like I have a strong work ethic, because I want to be right and I want to
Yeah.
I want to be able to help. But at the same time, it's like, well, once I've got it, then I'm like, all right, ready to do something else now.
Yeah.
So.
I feel you on that. So you brought up your husband multiple times. Let's hear about him.
Yeah.
What's his name?
His name's Andrew.
Andrew. All right.
And he grew up the opposite of me. He lived in the same house his whole life growing up, and went through the same schools and everything, and has a very stable like family life, and and his upbringing and everything. Not a lot of different changes and things, but I see the value in that too, and so he's like right now, it's difficult for him to change jobs. Where if he's unhappy with something, I'm like, just get a different job. You can do this. You have all these different skills. You can, and I'm able to see, different skills that he has based on the jobs that he's had, but he still kind of has this narrow view of what he can do. And I'm like, yes, you've been in this one particular field for X number of years, but from that you've learned how to manage people, how to manage different pipelines of information. You can take different bits of information and put that together in a different way and still make it applicable, and all of this. And so that can apply to any job. Yeah. Things like that. And so
if you can manage money, people, and information, you can get a job anywhere.
Yeah, and he can do all those things. So
perfect.
But I think just from his stable upbringing and kind of the idea of having a job that you do for however long, and then hopefully retiring and all of that, has made it a little more challenging for him to change positions. But he has progressed professionally, whereas I kind of bounce around, but I have different skills, but not necessarily moving up the corporate ladder, which, gotta be honest, I have zero interest in doing anyway.
But you're both progressing. Y'all just doing it in different ways, which I think is like a very key important thing that a lot of people should know. Like there is progression in all things, and it's not always the same thing.
Yeah. Like
I know just people that I've met compare themselves to a lot of other people, and that, why am I not progressing like they are? And it's like, well, what is your goal? And they say that's X. And it's like,